Welcome to the pilot episode of Consultants Catch Up. How are you doing? My name is John Russell, and I'm joined by my co-partner crab in crime, Mike Gowland. How you doing, Mike? You all right?
I'm good. I'm your co-pilot.
Nice. Got it in there first. For those of you who are playing co-pilot bingo, good luck with that. This is the first instalment on our new podcast where we will be chatting about the Power Platform, our journey into this space and everything in between. We'll also be having regular segments like Uncomfortable Corner, where we talk about how we are feeling uncomfortable or how feeling uncomfortable can lead to great things, as well as having guests on the show to talk about their journeys and what made them go into consultancy. But for the first episode, you lucky devils, it's just Mike and I. Before we, well, I suppose we have already started, but are we sticking with the name, Mike? Are we sticking with Consultants Catch Up?
I mean, is that really what you want to call it?
I mean, maybe we'll work it out by the end of the pilot episode. Should we just call it the pilot?
It's a bit late because as soon as people hear this, it's going to be out, and that's what it's going to be called. So I think we stick with it. Why not?
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. How's your day going today?
Hang on,
all right.
Hang on. What are we calling it again? Consultants Catch Up.
You don't sound very convinced.
No, I'm just checking. I'm the one who's got to upload this, so Consultants Catch Up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, yeah. Okay. Maybe we just call this one pilot episode number 1, and then get some feedback as to whether people think Consultants Catch Up is a great idea, and then we'll change its name.
So should we just call it Unnamed Podcast for now?
Okay. Yeah.
How many of those are about?
I don't know. Not many, I don't think.
No.
All about the brand, Mike. All about the brand.
Yeah.
So as it's just me and you, maybe if it's all right with you, you probably start with your journey, and then I'll go over into mine.
I thought we were going alphabetically.
Yeah, but my surname's Russell. It was Gowland, so if we're going for register, then
that's not what we got on the show notes. But okay.
All right. You can do it.
My journey. So
yeah.
What about my journey? Well, I accidentally became a consultant. I didn't. I wasn't a kid and thought, I want to be when I grow up as a consultant. What I wanted to be was actually a jet fighter pilot or go into space. But
nice.
Yeah, here I am doing Power Platform. But actually, what I did want to do from about the age of probably about 12, 13, when I started to really get into computers, was I wanted to code. I had this obsession when I was younger, because I say I'm an avid gamer. I've got a child, so I don't game as much as I wish I could. But I had this obsession when I was younger of coming up with mazes. So I used to spend my time on a bit of paper just drawing out a maze, and put as much creativity as I could into that. So there'd be all sorts of different paths you can go down, and all sorts of traps that you could fall into, and all that sort of stuff. I used to love it. And then I started thinking to myself, well, actually, there must be the stuff that I'm playing on my Nintendo, you must be able to make it somehow. Because when I was really young, I used to think there were little people inside the TV. But once my dad opened the back of it, that kind of disproved that theory, right? Yeah. So, well, I discovered that through him opening the back of the TV and also posting sandwiches into the VCR. So there's no one in the VCR apart from a few heads that obviously read the magnetic tape. But I thought there was something a bit more magical going on in there. I used to look at circuit boards and think they were like cities, right? So all these little traces of roads. You got these little capacitors and resistors, and they're buildings and car parks and everything like that. So, but no, I sort of went down the route of I really, obviously the way to make a game is to code, right? So I really got into coding. I actually started doing HTML, trying to make a website. Made for very, very, very bad websites in it'd be the early 90s. Probably late 90s. No, not definitely not early 90s. That's not right. So it'd be very, very late 90s / very early 2000s. I was making some crappy websites in HTML that did absolutely nothing. and then from there, I went through school. Didn't really do any like coding education in school, but as soon as I got to college, I did computing A level. That got me into like Visual Basic 6 and Access. So I started playing with
Hmm.
that. Dropped out of college because I was an idiot. um, yeah, I've never really got on with formal education. I kind of
Yeah.
averaged my way through secondary school, averaged GCSEs. Um, got through, go through college, and I don't know. I knew it wasn't a waste of time, but it, I didn't feel like I wanted to be there. Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I sort of waited to work, and I was working at news agents for a few years, but what did I want to do? I wanted to get into like coding, but I've actually thought like stupidly, well, maybe not stupidly actually, because I have ended up here, but the way to do that would actually be to follow my dad into printers. So that's what I did. I got my driving license at 19. I applied to work for a large print manufacturer called Rico. Got the job as a trainee field service technician. So I spent, I believe it was about 6 weeks, felt more like 6 months in Nottingham, learning how photocopiers work and how printers work. Got given a toolkit, got given a company car, got given a phone and laptop, and eventually sent out into the wild world of visiting schools, offices, army bases, supermarkets, you name it. If they had a printer,
Did
I
you
was there
travel?
fixing it.
Did you travel all over the place then with that?
Yeah, my area when I first started was pretty much from Plymouth up to Oxford and over to up to the M25, so like Woking way. That was the
Wow.
patch
Yeah.
I covered. With I was in a team of about 10, 15 people. Um, that as we started to acquire more businesses and we got bigger and bigger, that patch started to reduce down. And by the end, I was after 9 years there, I was basically covering the like Portsmouth and Chichester areas. But I did
Okay.
Portsmouth and Chichester, and then I also did Bournemouth, but I didn't do Southampton where I lived, which was, I mean, it was right in between the two, but it was just a little bit annoying because whenever I left for work, I would always have to either go to Portsmouth or I'd have to go to Bournemouth. It was
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
like I'm just going like I've got a call like 5 minutes away from home so I can have a bit of a lie. And no, I had to like get up and
So was that your first main job then
that
after
I
you'd
was,
finished
yeah,
college or
yeah,
after you came
first
out of college?
first main full time job. I did do my news agent job full time for a little while, but that was never like the intention to stay there. At the time, I actually took up photography at college, and the news agent's job was a way to fund that. So um, Ilford paper is really expensive. It was
Okay.
back then. Yeah, like the paper you use in a dark room and you like expose your negative onto the paper. That's like, I mean, I think I bought a pack of 100 sheets at about A4 size. Obviously not A4, but you get the picture. That A4 letter size. I think
Yeah.
that set me back about 50 quid or so. Um,
Wow.
and I was a 16-year-old college student, so 50 quid was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually, I actually signed up for it because I really wanted to do it, but I didn't actually realize how much it was going to cost me to do it. So I think I got hold of this like really old, like Soviet era Zenith camera
Yeah.
SLR. Obviously, then LV Ilford film was really expensive as well. Thankfully, all the chemicals and stuff that was all at the college. I was able to use that. Um, yeah, it was just a money sink, and we were
Yeah.
just doing negative
Yeah.
for so long, so I had to learn how to like take unravel your film and like cut the ends off, and you had to do it all in this like like a black bag. You put your hands in, and you do it all in there, so obviously you don't expose the negatives to light, because otherwise then you lose your image, don't you?
Yeah.
There was one point my mate decided to come into college drunk, and me and everyone else doing photography we were actually doing some of our coursework in the dark room, so we're doing all the development and stuff. And he had been this mate of mine had been at the park. He knew where the dark room was. On the wall, it says like a almost like a Z shape going in. So you walk into an entrance, you go round the corner, in, round the corner again. That was to obviously stop light leaking in from the outside world into the dark room, because there were no windows or anything like that, obviously. But there was a light switch on the wall as he walked in, and he was obviously really, really hammered, sliding along the side of the wall, hits the light switch. Everyone's got this like 50 quid
Oh,
photo paper out while they're developing
nightmare.
everything, and that light just instantly just
Oh,
wipes out everyone's
ruined
work.
everything.
Yeah,
Oh, ouch.
yeah,
Not so good.
no.
So, did you feel like was it hard to leave Rico?
Yeah, I was there for 9 years. Um I had this idea that a bit, I guess, a bit of like a progression path, really. I was a field service engineer. I went up the ranks in doing connectivity. I really excelled at like the networking side of it and the software side, but then I actually went up to doing like production print stuff, so fixing printers that are like the size of your living room or whatnot. Um,
Yeah,
I think, I guess, a little bit institutionalized. Like, I feel like the longer you are somewhere, sometimes it can be really difficult to walk away from that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. And why do you think that is? I mean, I've got my views on that. Why do you think it's hard? Why do you
I think
think it's
it's
hard
getting
to walk away?
comfortable, right? So I wasn't on a
Yeah,
particularly good wage, but I had a company car, right? So like I
yeah,
was sorted for a car. I was on this like salary that, okay, I'm not going to buy a house, but like I can survive with it. Um,
yeah,
yeah, just the prospect of actually like, yeah, you stay used to a way of life for so long, and actually like making that move is really, really frightening. I also,
yeah.
I had this really weird attitude that because they trained me up to be an engineer back in like, this was like 2007, I think. All that time, I was like, well, I feel like I owe them to stay here because they've
Mm,
given me that opportunity. They've trained me up.
yeah,
I probably wouldn't have walked it. I mean, I did actually apply for a few other places before I got to Rico, but yeah, no other place would probably give me that position or that opportunity. So I always felt like I owed them,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is a
It's a
bit.
tricky one, that isn't it?
It's, yeah, I mean, it's not. I guess it's not really like the right attitude to have, is it? It's just how I felt. Um,
Yeah, I think it's a valid feeling.
yeah.
Yeah, yes. So how did that transition happen then between there and becoming a consultant?
So I actually had this view of I wanted to go into their professional services team whilst I was at Rico, and when the opportunity came up, I applied, and I'd already like done certifications for the solutions that I'd be working on. Had sort of like tried to do it myself, had a good understanding of how they worked. I just never got the opportunity, and it was so like heartbreaking because it was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay there. Um, I enjoyed the people I worked with, and if I'd become a consultant, I would have still been in contact with them. I was friendly with the other consultants there in the department I wanted to move into. Um, it just never happened, and I just got to a point where I was like, maybe I just need to look somewhere else.
Mm,
Um, I actually followed my dad into the print industry, and my dad left. He was a product manager at Rico, and he actually got made redundant, and then moved to a small dealership, and then he moved over to Capita. They had a managed print division there. And after, I think he had been there for maybe like a couple of years or so, and an opportunity came up to be a post sales consultant, which would be basically doing the installation and doing the low level designs and whatnot. And he just said, "There's an opportunity here. Why don't you apply?" So I did, and luckily I got the job.
okay.
Had two really good interviews. In that time, I had sort of continued the coding as a hobby. Really wanted to do it as a job still. Like that was like, I guess that was like an end goal for me, was to move into development, move into coding, something like that. But um, actually doing that, it was still like, it wasn't really on my radar. I guess as
Mm,
much as like, okay, I'm in print. I want to like advance my career in print, and because it's what I know, and it's something I could, it's an aspiration that I can reach, right? Because I knew this stuff. Um, that's sort of where I went and got the job. I had a really good interview. It was with with my old boss. I won't name him, but I'm still really good friends with him actually. So we still catch up every so often. And yeah, I went there for about 6 years. It was with Capita, and then we eventually got sold off as a specialist division and formed Right Digital Solutions.
Okay. Right.
So,
Did you say?
Right, as in RIGHT.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So then,
Nice.
worked there, and then obviously, this is going to be the same your story as well, isn't it? Like COVID happened, right?
Mm.
Print just went from being a fairly profitable business to, I mean, I'm probably talking out of turn here, but not so much like a niche business because people still have to print, right? There's still a requirement to print, especially from like if you think of like accessibility standards and everything like that. Like not everyone has
Yeah.
email, not everyone uses email to the same extent that you would use normal post.
Yeah.
You still have to send letters out to people. You still have to there's still requirements to like wet signatures every so often. I know a lot of industries are kind of removing that requirement now, but in some industries it's still there. So they still have to print. It just wasn't as important once people started working from home. A lot of people
Yeah.
had to adopt that digital transformation very quickly during that time where you suddenly had to shift from everyone could come into the office to no one could come into the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone had to scramble to get that digital transformation done, rightly or wrongly. But you can't really blame anybody for how they implemented it because it was such a last minute requirement, wasn't it?
Yeah.
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 So obviously the print traffic was going down massively because nobody was going into the offices and printing. There was a lot of a lot of people had to go on furlough. I was one of the consultants that didn't go on furlough, so I was still working full time throughout COVID. But there just wasn't really there wasn't much coming in terms of support tickets. There was no new business coming in. That's where I actually started to look at Power Platform, and I found it
Right.
accidentally.
Yeah.
So obviously, as I said at the start, I became a consultant accidentally. I got into being a post-sales consultant. I didn't actually understand that I would actually be a consultant. I just thought, oh, cool, I'm going to be installing print management solutions, and I'm going to be doing this and that, and server management. Oh, cool, wicked. Actually, no, there was this whole element of talking to the customer, which I was good at. I may have lost it a little bit during COVID, but I think I'm back to where I feel comfortable talking to customers again as a consultant, which is
Nice.
the most important thing of being a consultant, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
communication. I'm definitely back there, but I think I lost a lot of that during COVID, where we just didn't have much interaction with customers. Well, nothing was really happening; everything was on hold.
Yeah.
I discovered Power. So I was actually into automation. So I was working with a lot of document management solutions at the time that also did document workflow. So this is like you scan a file that you scan a document that you photocopy, and it gets sent into this workflow, and it will end up in SharePoint with all this tagging and metadata around it. And you could do that OCR, you could extract text from that document to form part of the metadata, or you could trigger off another process based on the document that comes through. I was getting really into that, and I just generally started to take a real interest in automation. I'd actually done a bit of automation in the past with I had this project for a customer where I had to configure about 1,000 iPads or something manually with manual IP addresses, do app installations, all that sort of stuff. And I got so tired of doing it on the screen, I actually got a little Arduino board, wrote a program on it that simulated a mouse and keyboard, just plugged it into each iPad and just pressed a button, it would do it all for me. I was like, I'm
Nice.
not sitting here and doing this. I'm gonna find a smarter way of doing it.
Nice. That's very
And,
good.
I actually can't find any pictures. I used to have a picture of it because it was like basically an Arduino attached to a breadboard with a USB on the go cable to a lightning connector. I used to just plug this into each iPad, literally press a button, and you could see the iPad start
Yeah,
menu started
that's pretty
coming up.
awesome. I mean, that's quite tricky to do, I would have thought. Quite.
It wasn't actually that difficult. I mean, I knew a bit. I'd learnt a bit of C#, like self-taught by then, so I could sort of translate that into C, which was what you'd use to write an Arduino program.
Yeah.
It was all
Yeah.
trial and error, but I think because I had such a desperate requirement to do it, that kind of got me got me to actually build it right. Whereas if it was like, oh, this would be quite cool to do, it'd probably go on the back burner as a project and never get completed. But because it was like, right, this is making my life miserable, I need to fix this. That's
Yeah,
why,
and that's where it usually comes from, isn't
oh
it?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, something that makes you miserable, and you think, well, how can I like do this? How can I speed this up? How can I make this easier for me?
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely, yeah. So I was getting,
yeah,
I was getting into like automation. I was starting to learn about UiPath and everything like that. And a colleague of mine was like, "Have you checked out Power Automate?" I was like, "No." I looked at it, tried to do something on it. I was like, "This is shit." At the time, I was like, "This is shit. Would anyone use this?" And just like I kind of forgot about it. And then it came to COVID, and we were starting to look at like, actually, how can we do things more efficiently? And I went back to Power Automate, and I noticed there was a template on there for you. I think you pressed a button on Power Automate, and it would log where you were, and then you go back
oh
in
yeah,
when you've moved and press the button again. And it would calculate how many miles you'd taken to go to that. Well, obviously it's like as the crow flies, right? But it'd be like you've
yeah,
gone from this point to this point, so this is your distance. And it would like, I think it would write into Excel at the time, but you could obviously change that to write into a SharePoint list. So um, we sort of had this idea. Well, actually, why don't we get all of our like field service technicians to start doing this, and then we can start to automate their mileage reports. And we were talking about like, is this this is actually a safeguarding thing as well, so that we know where people are, if they get into trouble or anything like that. So we looked at doing that, and then there was something I had to do with that Power Automate flow, and I honestly can't remember what it was. It was something to do with the input, and I was like, well, this isn't going to work. So that's where I then thought, well, what else can we do? And that's where I found a Canvas app, right? Or
yeah.
Canvas apps, and that's sort of like where that started from. They built this absolutely horrific app that I still have the files for it, but I feel like if I look into it, I'm just gonna make myself sick because I'm sure there was a delegation issue on there or five.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was not something I was proud of. It didn't go into production in the end, and we shelved the idea. But that was like my first exposure to it, right? And then it just went from there. Um, I worked with a colleague of mine at Right Digital Solutions at the time, and we were looking at what can we actually do with this? Like what processes can we help to automate, and how can we simplify? Because we have this legacy back office system as well that just seemed to be a bit of an enigma. We were just like, how do we surface that? How do we interact with that better? How do we because every business has like issues, right? And when you're in there and you're experiencing the issues every day, you just, I know for me personally, I just wanted to fix them. I just wanted to
yeah,
not be
yeah,
the one that
yeah,
fixed them, but like try and find a way to fix them. And I just thought
yeah. Nice.
automation is the
Yeah,
way to do that.
yeah,
Eventually, like, I was never going to be doing it full time where I was, and I looked at the job market. I was like, I wonder if I can do Power Platform as a career. I wonder if that's a thing. And went on LinkedIn. I was like, whoa, okay, there's tons of jobs that I could do.
yeah.
Went to 2 interviews in one day to become a Power Platform consultant, and realized after 5 minutes in the first interview that I knew absolutely nothing about Power Platform.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But I
I was
think, but I
oh
think that is, I think sometimes that's beneficial though,
yeah,
because you have other experience that helps in a
yeah,
wider, broader consultant sense.
but I wasn't going into the interview being arrogant. I went into the
Yeah,
interview thinking I'm just going to see where I am, and
yeah,
I think that the first interview I had was cut off. It was supposed to be an hour long, and I think they cut it by half an hour because it was very clear I had no idea what I was doing or what I was
right.
talking
Fair
about.
enough. Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah,
I knew Canvas apps, I knew Power Automate a little bit, maybe not to like this level I know now, but um, it was definitely just did not. I mean, I had no concept of model-driven apps. I'd looked at Dataverse, but where I worked, we didn't have a Dataverse license. I didn't realize at the time you could have a developer account or a developer tenancy, so I just had not really interacted with it.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
we had
yeah,
Dynamics, but obviously I wasn't allowed to touch that, so we just had
yeah.
yeah, absolutely
Nice.
no Dataverse experience. Went through like 5 or 6 more interviews. They started to get better and better. Did some certifications, did some actual training. And then just got to January 2022 and interviewed with A&S, got the job, and here I am.
Very good.
Yeah,
Here you are.
here I am.
And here we are.
Yeah,
Nice.
accidental consultant.
Yeah. Yeah. So, thanks for that. So, like, my story is kind of, well, I did go to university, and I remember having a conversation with it was my mum's, I think my mum's cousin, who was a consultant then, and I said to him, what degree should I do that would set me up to go into consulting? And he said, well, a lot of people are either very much on the business side or very much on the IT side, and there's no one really in the middle. And that's kind of where that's the sweet spot of consulting, right? So I did a business and IT degree in Southampton, and came out of that with I had a year out where I worked at the BBC for a year, and then I went back to that role in the BBC and stayed at the BBC for another 9 years, but not actually going into consultancy yet. I kind of realised that, after 20 plus years of being in IT client side roles, that's when I got into consultancy. So that was a bit of a classic.
Did you want to be a consultant when you were
Yes.
at university?
Yeah.
So you've actually, we're kind of like opposites there, aren't we? I mean, there's so many parts of our lives that accidentally cross each other. Like, I'm from Southampton, you studied in Southampton.
Yeah.
We got married at the same wedding venue on different days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our cats basically might as well be brothers, right? But
yeah.
I never aspired to be a consultant. I guess that it wasn't so much that I was like, I don't want to be a consultant. I just wasn't really aware of what consultancy was. Whereas I think, it sounds like with you actually, that was like your goal.
Yeah, and I think also, like, the people side of it is the bit that I really love. Like, I love talking to people who are passionate about anything. And to the no disrespect to this group of people, but as about a year or so ago, my wife caught me having this full on conversation with the bin man and how the bins work and all this kind of stuff. And
sorry,
it's just
how
because
the bins work.
Well, how the mechanism where the bins get into the back and how they fix it when it breaks down and all this kind of stuff. I was talking to him for about 20 minutes.
Oh wow, because I was going to say they only have two wheels in the back and the lid. Like, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but it was just what I'm trying to say is that he was passionate about his job, right?
Yeah,
and he was conveying that passion, and that's what I love. I could talk to anybody as long as they're passionate about something.
Isn't that good though? Just being like passionate about your job. Like, I'm passionate about my job now.
Yeah, same.
That's just such a good place to be, isn't it? Like, actually wanting to go to work, actually being into it. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. It's and I think I've been lucky. I've had it most of my working career, maybe apart from a couple of places. But yeah, how I got into consulting. So it was, again, during COVID. I was working for a construction company, which people who know me will find that very funny because I'm definitely not into DIY, and it was an IT role basically. No, and that's where I kind of discovered Power Automate, because I was doing a customer service apprenticeship course. And I wanted to kind of automate the feedback that I was getting from people, so I just hooked up a form to Power Automate, and then if I got kind of marked down by someone, then it would flag that up to me, and I'd be able to go and have a conversation with them, kind of address it quickly. And I tried to kind of get into the Power Platform there, but it didn't really work. And then COVID happened. I started helping out with this Facebook group where I used to live, and I used Power Automate and SharePoint to onboard about 250 people to look after about 300 odd streets.
Oh yeah,
in this town, and it was absolutely crazy for like 2 weeks. It was really, really busy. And then after the 2 weeks, it got really, really quiet, and we were kind of all talking to each other, the people who were running the Facebook group, saying, where is, what's going on with everyone? There's we're getting no contact. Anyway, a couple of people reached out and said basically that they had formed these kind of local WhatsApp groups per street, basically looking out for people. And this one old guy, he emailed us to say that this was the first email he'd ever written, and that if it hadn't have been for us, he would have never got in touch with his neighbour, and it was his neighbour that helped him get on the internet and get a phone and stuff. So I realised then actually the bit that enabled that was the Power Platform,
Yeah.
because we were able to kind of really hit it pretty hard in a couple of weeks and get everyone kind of looking after their streets.
Mm.
So then there was a lady who lived in the same town as me who was on that Facebook group who worked for Quantic, and she saw what I was doing and she messaged me and she said, "Oh, I take it you're using like Power Platform there?" And this is kind of similar to your story. I was like, "Well, yeah, I am, but how do you know that?" And then I realised there's this whole career path within Power Platform consultancy that I hadn't even known that existed.
Mm.
And she said to me, "Oh, I think you should come and interview at Quantic and try and interview for a Power Platform consultant role." So I did. Got the job. I was there for probably, I don't know, 18 months, something like that.
Mm.
And then moved around a couple of times, and then ended up at ANS with
Yeah.
you lovely people.
So,
Um,
so you
so
say when you first got into Power Automate at the construction firm, you said it didn't pan out. What happened? What didn't pan out about it?
uh, so the thing with construction companies and is that they run on a very very minimum profit margin.
Yeah.
So it was something like something ridiculous. Like they had to make about 500 grand profit just to be able to pay someone a decent kind of wage, really, because
Mm.
they were running on like 2-3% profit basically. So um, it was a little bit tricky, and everything that I was doing with Power Automate and a couple of other bits was really on the sideline to my main job. Um, and so yeah, this opportunity came up, and I was like, I'm kind of all in because of what had happened in COVID, and I kind of realised how powerful it was. Yeah, and that's how I got into it.
Cool. But obviously, it's just the fact that they couldn't invest in it was that
Yeah,
why?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah,
It's funny. I think that's the same with a lot of people, though, isn't it? Is they get into it, but they're I guess that their organisation can't always see the ROI on investing in things like premium licensing, right? And I know at my
yeah,
last place I really struggled to get a premium Power Automate license to run a single flow, and
yeah.
that was actually to automate driving license checks. There was actually a business value in doing that, in that
Right.
for like company cars or like the insurance, they had to prove that we were checking licenses and making sure that people were able to drive. We could do that check every 6 months, and we actually automated that to the point where you invite the driver to go on the DVLA and generate that check code.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
sent that through, and we had a process that actually automatically checked the driving license status using that check code, which is like completely valid to do. That's what organisations do to validate that you're okay to drive. You're not disqualified or anything like that. Actual, yeah, genuine use case, but actually a real uphill battle for what, 100 quid or something, was it, a month? I can't.
yeah.
Probably not even that. Probably even like 50 quid. I actually can't remember what the pricing was back then. But
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's kind of important, isn't it? That
mm,
I noticed, when we're working together, like we've been, and we maybe talk about it a bit, the just ask it stuff. Um, I thought it was really important to make sure that we had some kind of um, visibility of how much things are costing,
yeah,
um, to really show the value of what can happen and how much actually it doesn't cost. It doesn't
yeah,
cost very much.
no.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's a good segue into that. So what maybe Mike, do you want to say what Just Ask It is
What
about?
what is Just Ask It? It's our solution that we put on GitHub very recently, that we've been trouncing around LinkedIn, and we also showed off at the Bletchley Microsoft AI user group. It is a solution designed for Power Platform consultants to be able to automatically generate things like ERD diagrams, user stories, all sorts of great stuff like that. based on business domain and use cases that we as consultants may not have that much knowledge in. So the idea is that it actually automates part of that research process that we would go through that could take a day and a half to actually understand the business process and specific industry.
Yeah.
It's no good updating the show notes whilst we're live and recording with John.
Well, no, there is, because then when we come to summarise it, we remember what we've spoken about.
No,
So, you know,
no, that's the great thing about this platform we're using. It actually has AI show notes that we can generate at the end.
no way.
Yeah,
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I don't say I don't treat you, John.
yeah. Thank you very much, mate.
Free trial.
So, where I think the bit that I really want to get to, and I think it's possible, is a kind of, and I think this is going to go into the kind of part around your orchestration part, which I'm still trying to get my head around. But
Yeah,
but basically, say you've got say you're on a sprint zero with a client. You know, you're recording it on Teams. You've got the transcript,
mm.
and then somehow we pull that transcript out of that Teams recording. We put it through Just Ask It with a prompt that is around, you know, generating user stories, generating user journeys, etc. And then we spit it out to Lucid or whatever tool we're using to create that kind of, you know, the board and the user journey maps, etc. And
Wow.
I think it's possible. I think it is possible. I've been looking into Lucid specifically, and they've recently got a public facing API endpoint that allows you to create Lucid boards. So I think it's possible, but that would be pretty gold standard if we got all the way from a conversation to a kind of, you know, sprint zero completion without actually having to write the board in the first place. We could then
Would we
concentrate on the
only use
conversation.
Lucid though?
Sorry?
Would it only be Lucid? Because
No. It
not
could be,
everyone uses Lucid.
yeah. It could be any
Yeah.
tool. So I think that's where your orchestration part comes in, which
Yeah.
I'm still struggling to. I do understand it in kind of like a high level,
Yeah.
but maybe now's a good time to explain it again, and I'll, you know, not write on the show note.
So so think about when we're interacting with AI and what we've done so far, right? So we have a system prompt, we have a user prompt, we send that to a large language model, and we get a response, right? And that system prompt, we can say output in HTML. We can make that part of the rules, right? We can say output as a JSON array, and here's what the JSON array should look like, and these are the sort of values that you can put in based on what we're asking you.
Yeah.
Think about the fact that we just do that in one prompt, right? But actually, what we could do is actually string this prompt together with multiple prompts. So we ask it a question. So we say, give us let's say we've got this business process in this specific domain. Generate a dataverse schema based on what we're asking for, and output and represent things like columns, data types, relationships, secondary keys, everything like that. So it generates that, and then actually, rather than building a single process that says, right, now convert that into Mermaid.js, what we can actually do is have this record that's represented in the system that says, this is the process that you're going to do, and these are the prompts. These would be the prompts that are related to the main process. These are the prompts that you're going to ask, and these are the parameters for each prompt that we need.
Yeah.
So we trigger that system I can't even remember what I called it now, but that's sort of like that top level request then goes off, and rather than sending one request to a large language model getting an answer, we actually send lots of requests. But what we can do by making that data driven is we can specify the sorts of processes we can do. So if we have part of that process might be, and I'm going to give credit to Mark Smith for actually putting this on our issue log on GitHub as a feature
Yeah.
request. Actually, like, here's the customer. Give us some like relevant news stories that have come out from this particular customer over like the past year. So that's not something a large language model can do, right? A large language model isn't. I mean, okay, you got like things like Bing Chat that can do a search. That's a function of that system, right? But just querying a large language model isn't going to have like the latest news to that particular that customer or that business domain. So
Yeah.
we can actually build a process that does that search, comes back, and we actually then just send prompts to the large language model and say, can you summarize this article? Summarize this article. Summarize this article. And then of all those summaries, can you identify problems that this business may have that need a solution? So we can actually do it that way. So we're making like web requests. We're bringing that data back in, and we just feed that back into prompts. And we were talking about cost earlier, right? So you start to think, actually, if you're going to be doing, what is that, 5 just to like get each article, you've got that initial prompt, you could actually have like lots of rules that you need to put around that. Actually, that's going to start to like bring up your token cost. And we represent token cost and just ask it on a field there. And we actually have a separate model table that has all the per input and output token costings built in. Actually, like, if it starts to get to like 3-4 quid to make that request, that sounds like a lot, right? But actually, if you're saving like a day and a half, 2 days of a consultant's time, 6 quid for some AI generation is actually not that much money. I don't think it would ever get to that. I don't think it would ever be that much cost, because it is actually really cheap to run these large language models and send these requests and prompts and responses, and the tokenization cost is just like, it's crazy low. And even with is it GPT 4.5, they even it's lower than GPT-4, right? So it's actually cheaper to run GPT 4.5 than it is to run GPT-4, and it's more capable. You got stuff. You got the cost like that. It's actually probably not even going to be 2 quid, right?
No, I know.
I say quid. I mean British sterling. So
GBP.
GBP, yeah. So actually, like, even though you're probably sending lots of these requests, and I was thinking to myself, like, God, is this just going to be really inefficient? Like, sending all these different prompts. Actually, no, that's what you do. So you think like, if you get to a tokenization limit with a large language model, you want to continue that conversation. And actually, how do you truncate your like entire conversation you've had with a large language model? You just ask it to summarize the conversation that you've had, and then feed that back in. You basically you take the conversation, you send it to the large language model and say, hey, summarize this, get the summary, feed that back in, and just continue the conversation that way. So you've eliminated like the 10 back and forth messages you've had with a large language model down to this single paragraph of like, yeah, the user asked this and this is what you've said so far. Feed that back in, you continue the conversation. You've just knocked out a load of that token cost. You've got around that limit, and you just do that again and again. So you just count the amount of records that you're sending back and forth, and say when it gets to like 15, we're probably getting close to the limit now. Let's do a summarization. Let's clear it down, and then let's continue the conversation. He doesn't see that. But I reckon that sometimes when you're talking, like especially in the early days, when you were talking to Chat GPT, when it was like it was 3.5 turbo and free, it was after a while, if you just kept the conversation going, it would just start to get a bit. I don't want to use the word hallucinate, but it would start to get a little bit sort of like lost the plot a little bit. Not that it went off and did so, but it just sort of like, it didn't quite have like the full conversation in context, because there was like bits missing from it. And I think that's probably what they were doing in the background, is that they were actually just doing this like summarization technique and feeding that back in. And that's actually like a documented way of getting around tokenization limits.
And like, going back to kind of the start with Just Ask It, and I think, we were kind of working on it without us. We were working on it separately without us really knowing that we were doing that. And that kind of all started, didn't it, from the South Coast Summit in October, where Donna Sarker was talking about AI. And me and you both came out of that, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment for both of us, wasn't it? I think
it was
kind of realized
it was more of like I think for me, I saw it as more of like a warning shot, right? Like, I've been telling myself that I'm going to get into it. I actually had to get into it. Like, I'm gonna if I don't do this now, I'm gonna get left behind. And I'm so glad. I'm going to say something a little bit controversial here. I'm so glad I didn't get on board with the whole metaverse thing. because I saw that as a way to price people out of doing teleconferencing.
I still think it will have merit, but I don't.
I don't
don't
think it
know
will have
when.
merit in the way that we think it's going to have
Really.
merit. I think as the technology gets smaller, yeah, it might get better, and it might be easier to like wear a headset all day. I think Apple have probably like, nailed it with their Pro Visor, whatever it's called. They have, but then there's going to be walled garden effects to that aren't going to work for every business.
No.
At the moment, I just see it as like an expensive way to have a Teams call, and actually, like, I think for me, I look at it, I'm like, what's the actual value here? Because I'm still not okay. I can see you in a virtual world, but I can't actually interact with you like I can't physically interact in a face-to-face conversation in person, right?
Yeah.
Can't shake your hand. I can only
Haven't they brought out something like it's got like haptic feedback or something?
Yeah, but how much is that going to cost, John? This is what I mean.
It's like a really expensive pillow that chucks air out on different places, and you kind of feel the sensation on your hands. You look
I
like
haven't got enough space on my desk for a pillow, as well as my keyboard, mouse, laptop, PC, 3 monitors, printer.
Look like a really scary version of Mystic Meg.
Yeah.
Although, she's pretty scary anyway. So let's now talk about our regular slot, really. Well, we think it's going to be regular.
As I say, it can't be regular if this is the first episode, right? Because it's not actually happening. Okay, so how would it be regular?
It's irregular at the moment, but it's about to become regular. And we need to like kind of cue some music here.
Let me see what I could do.
It'd be like some kind of like plinky plonky kind of stuff where everyone feels a bit awkward. And yeah, it's the segment called Uncomfortable Corner. Nice. Are you feeling uncomfortable, Mr. Gowland?
I always feel uncomfortable. I think it's just the way my underpants are at the moment. What's made you uncomfortable this week? The impending looming doom of Christmas and knowing I have to go and get my wife's presents at some point, but I'm just not getting the time.
You shot yourself in the foot twice.
No,
didn't you shoot yourself in the foot about anniversary or something on a podcast recently?
I did, yeah.
And now you've just done it again.
No, I almost, but pretty much got there with my wedding date. But I was on the spot, right? It was the first podcast I ever done. I was nervous anyway. And I was like, oh, when did I get married? Oh, fuck. I remembered everything else, but like I'm awful with dates, John. You know that because we've had all. How many engagements have we got lined up, or have we already done with user groups, interviews?
4 or 5, something like that.
How many times have I messaged you and been like, "When is this happening again? I really need to add it to my calendar," and I never do.
Yeah, that's the issue, Mike. That adding to the calendar.
Yeah.
But I can do that, so I'll just add you to it. I'll just invite you to it. Yeah, I think distracted maybe a better. But then I feel your pain because I know both of us have got ADHD, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I've coped with mine like for years, and I didn't even know that I had it. But I have quite strict coping strategies that I didn't even know were coping strategies. Yeah. Like I'm hyper organized to the point where it really annoys people. But I do that because otherwise I forget stuff.
What's weird with me is that in some elements I am hyper organized, and I like you. I've like developed coping strategies I didn't know were coping strategies. I am historically really bad with money. Really bad, really bad.
Yeah.
Not like I mean I was never in like 20 grand of debt or anything like that, but I did like I made some really dumb like money decisions and just was not very good at budgeting. Obviously now got a house, got a wife and kid.
It's even worse.
Well, there's no money, but the way I budget that lack of money is way better. And I've actually,
well done.
You know what? I actually used a Google sheet for the past 6 years.
Well done
for budgeting, and I use it's the same spreadsheet. Literally, I've got a religious. If I know that it's in the spreadsheet, right, it does all the calculations for me. It basically, at the end, it just tells me what I've got a week as pocket money. and
Nice.
it accounts for all
Nice.
of my bills, all of my savings, all of my the one credit card I have,
Yeah.
and like paying for childcare, everything like that. It's all there, and it just gives me that figure at the end. I'm just like, right, that's what I've got. That's what I've got to play with. That's
Very
my
good.
that's my
Very good.
pocket money, and it's normally like
Yeah.
25 quid a week. But
So sticking with uncomfortable corner.
yeah.
What else have you been? What else has been making you feel uncomfortable?
So the reason we did this segment, right, John, is we've been talking about something that a lot of people in the Power Platform community have said in the past, and I think Mr. Earnshaw, our gaffers, also said it to us. It's something I've been embracing for the past 6 to 8 months or so, and that's actually like embracing being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So not like, okay, I'm gonna stick like some needles up my ass and sit down, and that's gonna like make me uncomfortable throughout work, but actually putting myself into uncomfortable, I say uncomfortable situations, as in I'm gonna do something that I've never done before. So I've recently been looking at
Like
logic,
podcasting.
yeah, like doing a podcast for the first time, doing public speaking, writing a blog, posting on LinkedIn. That's all stuff that I would have been terrified doing, right?
Mm,
Just not
mm.
not that it's not me. I've wanted to do it, but I'm just like terrified of putting myself out there. That's a lot of that's down to like the imposter syndrome. Um, but one thing I have done recently that I'm actually really proud of is I went ahead and built a Dataverse plugin
Oh, nice.
in C Sharp. Yeah. So I have done C Sharp before. I self-taught. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm like an expert C Sharp developer, but I knew enough to cobble together a really bad Xbox 360 game on XNA. So thought, why can't I do a Dataverse plugin as well? So we actually had a customer requirement to do this, and um, didn't have the resourcing to get it done in the time frame the customer wanted. So I was asked if I could take it on, and I thought, yeah, that's going to make me really uncomfortable. I've never done it before. Um,
Mm,
what it did do was it gave me an excuse to get GitHub Copilot.
nice.
So you were talking about Just Ask It and how like Just Ask It will reduce the amount of hours a consultant has to spend actually researching how to do how to like put that business process together, right? Well,
Yeah.
GitHub Copilot is really good for like reducing the amount of dicking about that I would have had to do actually researching how to build a plugin from scratch.
Yeah.
So it
What
actually
was the kind of what do you reckon was the time saving? Would you be able to
weeks,
estimate
weeks. I mean,
weeks?
I probably
Right.
would have had to have spent, bearing in mind that I have a day job as well, I probably would have had to have spent like a good month actually like getting proficient at that and testing and trial and
Wow.
error, right? But
Yeah, it's big.
yeah, but GitHub Copilot meant that it didn't do all the work for me. So I know how to do all the logic and I know how to read documentation, right? So it was really good at giving me a foundation and guiding me in the right direction. It wasn't
Yeah.
always right. It was confidently wrong, as I keep saying about AI. So there's times that I was able to correct it, just like you
Yeah.
get with any other like use of AI, right? Sometimes you have to correct the AI. Um,
Yeah.
but it put that foundation together, and it was also really good initially to say, have I built this to like Microsoft best practice? And it actually gave me some suggestions of things that I could improve that they weren't like major flags, but they actually yeah, you gave me some pointers to say actually you could do this slightly differently and it would be more in line with this like page that you've referenced, right? So yeah,
Nice.
that was really good, and yeah, that got done, right? Something I'd never done before. AI helped me to do that. I think if I didn't know C sharp at all and I was like using GitHub Copilot as a crutch, I think that probably wouldn't have gone down as well. It probably wouldn't
Yeah.
have got to the. I definitely would have got to the end because there's still a lot that sorry that would make assumptions about that. Actually, you would need to say actually no, it needs to be this way, right? It needs to do this specifically because that's the use case rather than um, just assuming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, another uncomfortable thing I did was I put that through a code review at ANS, and I have done that before, but this was actually to do with C#, right? Not a Canvas app using like the
Yeah.
like the code review tool we use for Canvas apps at ANS.
Yep.
This was actually like some C# I'd written, and there were some things that our guy, I'm going to shout him out, actually, Bogdan. He's actually a legend. He actually took the time to go through it, gave me some really good pointers, and it actually made the plugin even better. So like having
Nice.
this helper
Awesome.
a helper class file attached, so it didn't have to like hard code any values in. They could all get hard coded into the helper file. So if we're moving from one environment to another and we have to make some changes, like you can just make the changes in there, and it actually then helped for me to run it in like my own sandbox environment and also like have a production ready version as well to give to the customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's been making me uncomfortable. What about you, John?
I suppose. I suppose at the moment I would think it's like, yeah. I mean, there was the public speaking thing. I do like when we did the Bletchley Park one.
Oh yeah, that was
I think
uncomfortable.
I think I was more nervous than you were. Because I noticed you asked me if I was all right a couple of times, which normally
You were
means
hunched
I'm
over in the
kind of
corner, mate, in the
yeah,
shadows.
yeah. The thing is, though, I think I always get that like that before I speak somewhere, and actually, it's because I've had like problems with anxiety and stuff in the past. I think there's a very close relationship between feeling anxious and feeling kind of excited or slightly apprehensive about doing something. And so my brain mixes them up
Yeah.
and I don't know which one I'm feeling. But as soon as I start talking, it's fine. Um, and
I
yeah, that's the thing that made me uncomfortable. But
I
I
hear
think
that. So
also,
I was going to say that anxiety about presenting. I think everyone gets that, and I think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
such a natural thing, right? It's like a flight or fight thing, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
You're like
yeah, yeah,
you're in
and then
that position where actually you could just leg it out, and we're going to go back to Donna Sarker because she actually gives a TED talk from a few years ago where she started at Microsoft in a certain position, and she was going to a university and suddenly on the spot had to give a presentation to those students about working at Microsoft. And she actually, in her story, she says she runs off and stands under the water tower, and then a colleague of hers, it was all about imposter syndrome, and
yeah,
a colleague of hers was like, "No, that is like the most natural, normal thing in the world, and
yeah,
everyone feels
yeah,
it."
yeah, yeah. And I think it's what you do with that feeling, right?
Mm.
Like I think you can definitely channel that into your presentation, especially if you're, and that's the thing that I've learned recently over the last few years is I'm passionate about what I'm speaking about, and that
Mm.
makes an absolutely huge difference.
So I guess it was a
Yeah.
bit of a problem that I was there cracking jokes in the corner.
No,
I
no,
guess.
no. That was good. That was great. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what gets me over my nerves, though, is that if everyone laughs, even if it's at my own expense, I feel like much more comfortable about talking. And
yeah.
I think the first public speaking session I did, it was at the South Coast user group. The first thing I did was I just had this joke of, is anybody afraid of crabs? Because my whole slide deck was just full of these crabs flying about the screen.
Did
Um,
anyone say yes?
no, but everyone laughed.
Ha, brilliant. Yeah.
But that
Once you got
like
people laughing, that's it.
I
Yeah.
I was so nervous leading up to that. Like I was actually the last session as well. So there's 3 sessions in total.
Oh,
They did
yeah.
2. They went and had some food, and then I was the third session at the end. So I was basically spent the whole like first 2 sessions absolutely bricking it. Um, they then had food. I was like, I don't want anything to eat. I was so anxious, I just couldn't eat, which is really unlike me. If you ever
Yeah.
seen the
Yeah.
size of me,
Yeah.
um, I remember I was just actually just sat in the room. I was just going through my presentation, like absolutely, still bricking it.
Yeah.
Um, I think what I learned was that usually the audience doesn't bite, and actually everyone's there to listen to what you have to say.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like say. I guess this is the difference of like teachers in secondary school versus people doing user groups, right? Is that no one's forced to go there. they're going there because they want to like learn from you and see what you have to say. So
Right.
no one's going to
Yeah.
bite,
Yeah.
right?
So everyone's on a kind of level playing field right from the way off, I
Well,
think.
they should be. And actually, like I've had some situations where I've had some people who are actually really into the material, and actually they have like disrupted as well. But I think that is good. Like it's
Yeah.
good that people are really that into what you have to say.
Yeah. I mean,
That was
that happened to us at Bletchley, right?
it did, yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're kind of coming to an end of this one. Then I think if you want to reach out to us, Mike and me are both on LinkedIn. Mike Gowland, John Russell, and I'm on Twitter as John Does Flow. We'll put some notes in the show notes to links and stuff. But I think also if you want to be a guest on the show as well, and you like what we're doing here, then get in touch with either of us and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to volunteer some people, aren't we?
Yeah. I've already got a list. I've already got a
Yeah,
list.
same.
Yeah, nice one. All right, cheers, Mike.
Right, love you,
Nice
John.
chat to you. Cheers, pal. See you later,
Bye.
man. Bye.